Welcome to another new episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 346. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Community Digital News, nyfights.com. Daniel, other regular from the Inscriber and For Boxing News, who'll be on with us shortly. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, site slash blogs discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. If you want to find out all the information, site is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. Let me repeat that, p4pboxingreport.com. Check out the site. You'll find links to where to find us all over social media, on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, IG. Also links to where to find us all over the podcast realm, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Spotify, be it Anchor, anywhere and everywhere else in between. If you want to email us, you can do so at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you want us to shoot some coin during this holiday season, catch me and PayPal links there on the app as well. And although I'm stepping away from the Beachbody coaching thing for the time being, I would still suggest you check out Beachbody on demand. Take advantage of the 2-week trial. For 2 weeks, you get free access to all available programs on Beachbody, be it the Classic P90X series, be it the 6 weeks of the work, be it the PIO, be it the bar blend, morning meltdown for those who want to get their workout in the morning, shift shop, even the boxing base program, 10 rounds. What that is a boxing program, 3 days of weightlifting, 3 days of boxing base cardio, 2 days of weightlifting. Or if you want to check out the new 645, which just dropped for the public, the general public, earlier this month, please check out Beachbody on Demand. If you're interested in any of the programs, even though I'm not coaching them for the time being, just email me, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com, or hit me up personally on my Twitter page, Brother JR at Brother JR76. Let's get things going here. Like I said, Daniel, he'll be with us shortly. Let's recap some fights here. Let's start. Let's start. Let's start in L.A. Yeah, fight took place on a rare Sunday evening. Um, Gervonta Tank Davis defending his WBA regular lightweight belt. He was supposed to fight Rolly Romero. He fought Isaac Cruz as a late replacement. I was able to see this fight. And a lot of criticism, or some criticism, coming towards Tank's way. He ended up winning by unanimous decision. I think in and around 8-4 on the scorecards, minus a round here or there. It might have been 9-3 on a couple of others, but with the distance. And Tank, for the last few rounds, suffered a hand injury, and he landed good shots. Cruz was tough. Cruz, he landed his fair share of shots too. I like how he went to the body, made Tank work all night long. He had Tank's respect before the fight, but even more so after the fight. Afterwards, Gervonta Davis said that he's the best lightweight in the world, that he would beat all the elite fighters at 135, be it newly crowned unified champion Kambosos, be it Ryan Garcia, be it Devin, Haney. Floyd in the aftermath was caping for Tank hard, right? Saying him and Ellaby said that they tried to make the fight with Garcia until Garcia basically said no. All that, Gail, I don't think you saw the fight, but from the reports that you read, your observation of all that went down during the fight, as well as the defensiveness for Tank Davis afterwards.
I did see highlights. I didn't see it in real time, and have had a chance to read a lot of the interviews, think about it, and come on, boxing fans, you know that a lot of what we've heard after the fact doesn't quite pass the smell test, even for boxing. Now, admittedly, we give Tank a little bit of a break because of a break, apparently, or damage at least, to his left hand, which he acknowledged, which seems to be absolutely the real deal. He carried on. He didn't let on. That's the way a champion behaves. Good for him. It did almost cost him the fight. It was much closer, obviously, than anyone thought. Folks, we have to stop thinking of any matchup as a layup. Look what's happened with upsets this year. You have what I'm calling mystery Mexicans going over as opponents to Great Britain and wiping out guys one after another. And then in just the last couple of weeks, you've had George Kambosos and Isaac Cruz made such a good accounting of himself that I would say his reputation gained more on the chart than Tank's did. Tank and his minders, Mr. Ellerby, Mr. Mayweather, need to sit down and do some serious thinking and serious reassessment. They would be very, very smart to pick apart this fight, pick apart where they're going, take a very hard, cold-eyed look at this. Tank's got plenty of talent. Tank's got plenty of charisma and followers, but talk is cheap. We all get it. But the lightweight division sands are shifting and shifting fast, and he should be willing to face anybody, take him on. He can talk all he wants, but until he gets in there and performs, it's worth whatever it's printed on, which is nothing. Say this for Devin Haney, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Devin Haney does take on everybody. He is the one guy in the division who has agreed to face all comers. He seems to be able to make the fights happen. Tank, Tank has been protected too long. I say this to both Leonard and Floyd. Come on, guys. You brought him up very carefully. You're protecting your investment. I get that. You are very smart money men. Nobody denies that. But it is time to take the bubble wrap off Gervonta Tank Davis. It's not doing him any favors. He is heading into his late 20s at this point. Really, his signature win is against, admittedly, a smaller, somewhat on the downside, Leo Santa Cruz. He's going to start becoming irrelevant in a very, very competitive division if he doesn't position himself and take some more chances on himself. That's what he really needs to do. He was very lucky to get out with this kind of a win, but it raised a lot of questions.
I agree, Daniel, with Gail in saying that Davis handled himself like a champion. He handled himself like a professional, fighting through pain, right? And just a bit of correction. I said may have been 9 rounds to 3. It was actually 16-12, 15-13 on the other 2 scorecards. I agree in that Tank did what you're supposed to do as a world champion, as a professional, fighting through pain. But to Gail's point as well, time to step up. Tank has become a star in the sport. He's become a bit of a cash cow, Daniel. The issue now is, as we closing fast on 2021, heading into 2022, when are we going to see this guy? Or more importantly, when are we going to see Floyd and Leonard Ellerby put him in fights? And I wrote about this for 3kingsboxing.com. You can please check out 3kingsboxing.com. Your source for boxing, pure unadulterated boxing information, right? I wrote about this, and it's time for them to step it up. No more dilly-dallying here. I can understand the Garcia fight because they did try to make the fight with Garcia, and Garcia, after talking all that mess, all turns around and says, "Oh, I want to fight Manny Pacquiao in an exhibition." That's why he has no credit running his mouth on Twitter, on social media afterwards. We had the opportunity to fight him, son, and you all of a sudden, when it was right there on the table for you, was like, "Nope." But still, you got Haney out there. You got Kambosos. You got Lomachenko who's fighting this weekend. When are we going to see the dude Daniel? When are we going to see Floyd and Ellaby really test this dude and put this guy up against the best of the best at 135 pounds?
If you want my honest answer, not in this decade.
Damn.
Because unfortunately, this is the situation that you're looking at when it comes to the Floyd situation. You mentioned the opponents. Haney, he's probably looking more at Kambosos than Tank. Vis-a-vis Kambosos. And we have to remember that at one point Floyd used the Lomachenko fight as a threat to Tank so he could behave. I know they know that they built a bit of a cash cow with it, but they built somebody that is tough, can hit. However, he can be outboxed. And if someone is smart enough to outbox him, while at the same time not also get into a firefight with him and have him land the uppercut, that's pretty much all you need. And quite frankly, Floyd's, unfortunately, his mind is occupied on something else at the moment. So I don't think they're really they're gonna keep him probably within the PBC sphere, make fights in that area, and business-wise that works. You'll still sell out pay-per-views. He'll still put decent things at the gate, but at a certain point, we have to understand, unfortunately, that Tank is going to be just mainly an attraction. Probably when it comes to this situation, because which contender right now at lightweight can you say that outside of a puncher's chance Tank can beat? You can't say that with Haney. You definitely can't say that with Loma. The closest person would be Ryan Garcia, but Tank has never seen somebody with the hand speed of Ryan Garcia, so we don't know if that would affect him. And to your point, yeah, Brian did have the fight ready for him, and then he pivoted towards a Manny Pacquiao fight. But business-wise, wouldn't you? Even if it fell through, wouldn't you? If you have this fight going, and then suddenly you're presented a Manny Pacquiao fight, even if it fell through, you would still go into it because that's Manny Pacquiao. Unfortunately.
One, it was an exhibition. Two, I was never sold on it because you never heard anything officially or from Pacquiao himself.
Yes, but that's what I mean. Even if it fell through, but if you presented if you even somewhat presented the possibility, I understand why you would do it. But
ahead, my bad.
But that's the only thing that he has. Like, other than that, I don't see it happening right now, especially with Floyd. Like I said, his mind being elsewhere at the moment.
What about the before I go to a comment question from Lee in the chat? I mentioned he was supposed to fight Rolly Romero. Do you think that will be his next bout? Try a rescheduling of that?
Oh yeah. Like they remember that was the fight that we were supposed to. Yeah, the fight that was supposed to have before Cruz. Absolutely, he would take that fight into it because it's an easier fight for him. You're not going to risk as much, and it still keeps you active. So yeah, I could definitely see Tank and Rolly just reschedule the bout once the allegations get sorted out, because that'll decide of anything. If the allegations fall through against Rolly, then you get scheduled it. If not, then you have to look elsewhere.
Mention, comment, and question from Lee in the chat. I'll go to the comment first, and then we'll answer his question. He says, one day Davis's tendency to be hustled in terms of work rate will cost him dearly. If he fights Haney, absolutely. If he fights Kambosos, absolutely. I will agree with you on that one. He also says, Lee, shout out to Lee Gross for joining us live. Please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to like this episode as well if you enjoy what you're hearing. He also says, how would you rank Davis's title winning victory over Jose Pedraza? As far as signature results, it's still arguably, Lee, and you can chime in as well, Gail and Daniel, it's still arguably his most impressive win in terms of fighting someone relatively in their prime. Now, I will say this, Pedraza made it easy for Tank that night because he fought a stupid fight. However, given who Pedraza is and how he has performed since, you give him credit for that win. To me, it's still his best win. He hasn't been in there with that kind of a prime, really good, solid fighter since, and that's an indictment on Tank. That's an indictment on Floyd, and again, an indictment on Ellerby and everybody at Mayweather Promotions. I'll go to you, Gail, and Daniel. Your reaction, your thoughts on Lee's question.
Well, I think that's a really good point Lee makes. It's definitely either Pedraza or Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz had on paper the pedigree that Pedraza didn't quite share, in my opinion. But truthfully, he had a better performance against Pedraza, who I think at that point of the career where they intersected was a tougher opponent than Santa Cruz. It's just that, Santa Cruz could wave that resume. So hard to say, but neither one of them, really rise to the kind of stature that Tank wants to have right now and that his minders are trying to convince us he does have. And I'm not saying he isn't capable, but, somebody's got to show me, not just tell me that he's capable, especially in such a competitive division.
Daniel?
Yes, unfortunately, that is what we have seen when it comes to Tank. He can be outboxed, he can be done out work rate, which is why, the main thing that he has going for him is that punching power, is that uppercut. And I would say more than likely Pedraza would probably be the better victory than Santa Cruz, at least in my eyes, because at that point Pedraza was a tested champion, wasn't as shop worn as Santa Cruz was when he fought. And he was a natural 130 pounds into it. We can pretty much all agree that Santa Cruz at this point is a blown up bantamweight who can fight at featherweight, had no business being a lightweight.
Right.
So Pedraza's probably the more signature victory, because for the first 4 rounds, you saw Pedraza, even when he got comfortable and decided to make the mistake of trying to get into a firefight with Tank, was outboxing him in the early parts of that fight. And the thing about it is, Tank's fights, you can see the resume. If you can outbox him and not get into a firefight with him, if you decide to do that, you'll win. And the thing is, outside people know this, Floyd and Ellerby know this, which is why they probably do not want to risk it.
Follow-up question from Lee here quickly. Do you think that Mayweather's handling of Tank's career reflects Floyd's own profound insecurity? Perhaps he thinks a loss by Tank would reflect badly on him and his critics would be eager to pounce. No. Well, I'll let you guys respond and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Yes, but I think for a different reason than the question's premise. Um, y- yes, let's see. How do I put this? Do I think so? Yes. I mean, obviously Mayweather is managing Tank's career through his own dirty lens, right? That it was all about that getting to that 50-0, and he wants the same for Tank. It certainly has worked for him at a lot of levels. On the other hand, he's also taken a lot of heat for avoiding certain fighters over the years. He's managed to brush it off because he got there. He got there ahead of anybody else in the modern era, anyway. Um, but if Tank loses, then he ends up with an argument against himself, because if he still maintains that fiction of the only way to be great is never to lose, now he's got a guy that isn't great. So he either gives up his own fiction about it or he gives up Tank's fiction about it, but he can't maintain both. So who's he going to back? His guy Tank, or the career he's put in place and constructed this narrative about his entire life? And I think the loser ends up being Tank, literally and figuratively. Because now he can't defend it. Now he can't say, well, a loss could teach you a lot. The real thing that he should turn around and do, which I'm sure he's absolutely 100% incapable of doing, given his comments the last few weeks, he should turn around and say, look what's happened to Canelo Alvarez since he fought me. Fighting and losing to me was the best thing that ever happened to Canelo. He should be thanking me for everything I taught him. That's how he should handle it with Canelo. And he could do the same thing now with Tank if he thought it through a little more.
What say you, Daniel?
Yes, but for different reasons to me. We've had situations where Floyd has backed fighters or has fighters along the stable, and he has maneuvered them to be in positions where they could possibly be champion. Mickey Bay, Jalen Love, Badu Jack. We know, and unfortunately, we've seen the results of those fighters. Mickey Bay was not the same after that, after he lost to Molina, the way he did. Jalen Love just hit a wall he could not break right at the point where he was going to be in contention, or at least be in the discussion in all four sanctioning bodies. And when it came to Badu Jack, it was a situation where he unfortunately got the tough luck in the draw in a couple of fights that we know he won. So that falls into it where if you're a business person, if you're trying to say, I can guide your career, I can make you a champion, I can do the things the way my way, you have three perfect examples right there of it not working. Three, either by your means or somebody else's. And Tank right now presents his best chance to succeed in the template that he wants to make. The only problem, unfortunately, with that is he's gonna let his own ego get in the way. Like Gail mentioned it, like all the comments that have come out of Floyd's mouth in the last couple of weeks, he's letting his own ego get in the way. And that's just one of the reasons why I said like he's never going to put Tank with somebody that not only it's not just having a puncher chance to beat him. You can see how to beat him, and you taking that to the account that there's not a lot of fighters you can see in the Mayweather gym or Mayweather promotions that are even remotely close to the position Tank is. So if you're going into that, and if Tank loses, and like Gail mentioned, your mantra of the only way to win is by being perfect goes out the window. You don't have anybody else that's ready, like really, really ready to be the next project, to be the next mantle. He'd be in a similar position that Golden Boy is currently in right now, where, okay, you lost your top fighter, you didn't have somebody ready immediately to take that mantle, so you're starting to build from the ground up. And I don't think Floyd wants to do that.
Slight pushback from me. I don't think this is a hit at his insecurity, quote unquote. You kind of mentioned it, Daniel, the last part of what you said. To me, that's not an issue of insecurity. That's an issue of, again, he's a moneymaker right now. This dude, he's not a kid anymore. He's 27 years old. He's a grown-ass man in boxing terms, right? He's selling out arenas. He's going pay-per-view his last 2-3 bouts, right? To me, he's an investment more than anything else. You said it earlier, Daniel. He teased Lomachenko out there when Tank and Floyd were disagreeing with each other, when they were at odds. If he was willing to do that, but he's not going to do it now because he sees a lot of money that can be made from Tank Davis fighting. So I don't think that's insecurity. That's all about finances. That's all about bottom line. If he wanted to put Tank in there with the Lomachenko, with an Haney, with Ryan Garcia, even a Teofimo, if he dares to try to stay at lightweight, or a Shakur fighting at 130, who's going to move up to 135 sooner than later, Floyd would do it, but he's not going to do it now because the money investment's there. He was willing to do it when he was pissed off at him, so that's not insecurity. That's about the dollar, which is why he calls himself money. That's how I see it.
Yeah, but do you think he would have really followed up on that threat? I think that was just a threat, nothing more.
Keep in mind, this is the same dude. This is the same
there.
Floyd. This is the same Floyd who walked out on Tank during the weigh-in for not Gam. Was it Gamboa? Because he didn't make weight, and it was obvious he was acting fool during the lead up to that fight.
Yeah, I think it was the Gamboa fight, but
it was.
This is the thing we have to remember also, Mike. Doing the Lomachenko fight also means working with Bob. And you know how hesitant Floyd is about working with Bob.
Yeah. Because Bob's a tough businessman, and he knows that. He learned from the best.
And Tank is on his good side now. So, but if they ever get on the odds again, Floyd ain't that loyal. Not if it takes money out of his pocket. He'll throw him in there.
Floyd is completely loyal to his bank account.
That's what I'm saying. He's not that loyal to Tank. If it makes him money, yeah, he's loyal. But if Tank screws up or whatever, he ain't that loyal to him.
Well, Floyd has tossed a lot of fighters, formerly in his camp under the bus.
Right.
When it suited him. Yeah. He's there with them in the good times. He's not there so much with them in the bad times. But, I'm going to point something out here. Tank's ability to put butts in the seats, meat in the seats, is incredible, especially when they're very, crafty about the markets he's going to. That's been an incredibly smart strategy. But come on, you do not put a massive pay-per-view star in a fight on a Sunday night. It's not happening. No. They had to take that date because if he wanted to have a fight, he didn't have a whole lot of other options. Believe me, if he could throw that kind of monetary weight around, that kind of pay-per-view draw, not the tickets in the arena where that's absolutely legitimate. He is a gate draw. He's not a pay-per-view draw. I would argue about that. It would be very smart for this next fight, in which he's, in theory, supposed to whoop up on Romero if they do that fight. That is a really good choice. It all assumes Romero clears his name, though, and that is far from a guarantee. But he needs an opponent like that. And it wouldn't hurt if it's a flashy, crazy trash talker like Romero. That needs to be on broadcast or regular cable to get Tank back out there in front of a larger set of eyeballs. It just does. Because he does not have the kind of negotiating power without that audience in comparison to someone like Ryan Garcia. The reason Garcia is in the driver's seat is all that audience he commands on social media. And you can laugh about it all you want. But Ryan, and especially his role model, Jake Paul, is proving how much money in the bank that is worth. And it's worth a lot.
Sorry, I was on mute. One last comment for Lee, and then we can move on. Looking at BoxRec, the fight in which Tank missed weight and lost the title against Fonseca, fighting August 97. But Gamboa, here's the thing, Lee. He made weight technically for the Gamboa on the first attempt. He was a pound or a little bit over a pound over. He made it on the second attempt. So that's what I mean by it in terms of Floyd walking out on their way in. Tank was over. Everybody knew it. Floyd knew it. Got ticked off. He said, "I'm not going to stand around for the bullshit," and walked off. Walked away from it. So that's what I was referring to. But you're right. He did miss weight for the Fonseca fight. That's how he lost the IBF junior lightweight title back in 2017. Let's move on to some other fights here. Sticking in the lightweight division, we talked a lot about Tank Davis. Let's talk about WBC champion Devin Haney. He defeated Jojo Diaz 8-4, 9-3 for the most part on the cards. I had it 9-3 on my personal card and watching the fight. And Tank drew criticism for his fight against Cruz. So did Haney. And this one I really don't understand because, look, say what you want about Jojo Diaz. He's a really good fighter, former champion at 135, 30 pounds, never mind how he lost the belt because he didn't tend to business in terms of weigh-ins. A common theme lately in current iteration of boxing, fighters not taking care of business when it comes to the scale. But he talked his way into a fight, right, via social media. He got it. Haney gave it to him when he didn't need to, Daniel. And I thought he performed well throughout. People chastised him about being too much of a mover. He stood in there. He fought. He took some shots, and that way he showed a good chin. I thought all around, I was fairly impressed. I don't get the backlash.
I think part of it is because people they remember the Linares, how hurt he was in the Linares fight in the 11th round, and we're trying to see if Jojo will just bull rush to try to get him into that. But you were dealing with two counterpunchers in this fight. And Jojo even said it, like he was respecting Haney's counterpunching ability. Not to get into
And
a
his
major
power.
firefight.
And his power.
Mm-hmm. And that was probably one of the things that you would probably regret the most when it comes to this fight. If JoJo only had a little bit more power, because this was similar to me to what we saw with Fulton and Figueroa last week, where one guy was working to the body a little bit, was working to the body mostly. Another, the opponent was aiming more for the head, but his punches were crisper. His punches were more visible. The main difference is that with Fulton chose to fight Figueroa's fight. Haney, for the most part, stuck to his game plan, and it showed in the scorecard. And JoJo understood that. He didn't try to make a fuss about losing. He understood that he lost, but he also showed at certain points, just like Figueroa did with Fulton, that Haney can be vulnerable. There were many instances throughout the fight where Haney was somewhat buzzed by JoJo, and vice versa. And when you have that, and you have the Linares situation happen, that's where you can see a little bit, like I said, some of the pushback from people that just wanted to see somebody bum rush Haney. But boxers game respects game. They respected each other's game.
What say you about this fight, Gail?
I agree completely that JoJo, is very similar in a way to Figueroa, and that the power pop, the one punch power is a little bit lacking. So they've got to rely on other tools, which they do very well. But the bigger problem was it was a fight where distance made the difference. Haney has I think it's a 6-inch reach advantage on JoJo. And with the snapping jab that he's got, he could stand there and play with him all day. JoJo had to dare to be great, and he didn't get going with that soon enough. I mean, he didn't. He circled for the first 3 rounds, and looking for a way in where he wouldn't have to take incoming fire. Well, you know what? That wasn't going to happen, and he knew it. He figured it out. So by the 4th round, he went up. He went after him, and it was absolutely his best round of the fight. The problem is he needed at least 6 or 7 more rounds like that to make sure he was up on the cards, and he couldn't deliver. He just couldn't. I'd love to know what his thinking was. His stamina is generally not a question. He's in excellent shape. Maybe some of those punches hurt him more than we thought, and he had to ration his exposure to them, or was worried about getting caught with a mistake. I'm not sure. He just wasn't busy enough. And for a fighter like him, unfortunately, that's the kiss of death. But how refreshing to see him acknowledge he was beaten. It wasn't going to stop him. He's not whining. He's coming back. He's going to build back. That's absolutely the attitude you want a fighter to take after a loss like that. He'll learn from it. Hopefully he'll go back and study it. And we'll all welcome seeing him again. Fighters who lose and whine, take note of that approach. That will serve you a lot better in the long run.
Now, someone who was very prominent, made himself very visible at the fight, it was newly crowned um, unified IBF BA BO champion George Kambosos. He was out there in Vegas. This fight took place in Vegas. He was out there all week long, making the rounds. He was at the press conference with made sure to have himself seen with Haney. He was part of the Zon a ringside broadcast team. They interviewed both men after the fight. They both say they want the fight. I'll go back to you, Gil and Daniel. Haney seems to want it. Kambosos is really selling it hard. He wants the fight, but he wants it in Australia. The question is, will we see it? They're talking about maybe happening ASAP. I honestly don't see that. As I said last week, let Kambosos look. He's been away from his home country of Australia in terms of fighting for quite a few years now. Let him make a return home and have a defense in front of his peeps, right? Uh, if this is going to be for undisputed, damn it, sell it. Sell it that way. That means it's going to take some time. Let both of them have at least 1-2 more fights, and then hopefully set it up at some point in 2022. But the main thing for me is if they're talking about this fight happening, and they're both serious about it, let's do it. The question is, will we see it?
Oh, I do think we'll see it. I don't think we'll see it next. If anybody was owed a homecoming fight, it's George Kambosos. I mean, absolutely nobody will deny him that. You should absolutely have a terrific homecoming event. I loved Haney's attitude. I hope he was on the level. They asked him, would you go to Australia? And he said, I'll go to Jupiter if I have to. That is what I want to hear. Great fighters frequently have their biggest successes, on the other guys on the champion's home turf. And they take their belts away right in front of all their fans. Talk about satisfying when you do that. Listen, this is a massive event if it takes place in Australia. Absolutely true that they'll put 80,000 butts in those seats there. That's a big, big money event. Haney does not have that kind of drawing power in the U.S. And Kambosos, despite probably the most incredible barrage of media exposure I think I've ever seen after a fight, except maybe for Andy Ruiz Jr., neither of them are on their own or even together the kind of stars to pack a place like they would be in Australia. They're going to have to be a little cagey about the time of day that they stage the fight so that it'll be a bit more America friendly. But hey, I'm fine with that. That's the way to do it. I do think it's going to be second half of 2022, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Now, does this drag on for another year or two? Oh, hell no. That I wouldn't be too happy about. Let's give Kambosos his homecoming fight, and then let's strike while the iron is hot. I do, in my heart, believe Haney and his father trainer are eager to do it. We'll go there, are ready. Good for them. Let them get it on.
Quickly, Daniel, do you agree?
I agree with Gail. Like it's gonna happen to me, but it's not gonna be next. First, remember we have to worry about the BA and the BO when it comes to mandatories. So we have to see how that shakes up, and not only for that, but for another little piece of business with an Australian fighter that can make that a mega card in Sydney or wherever they put it. Why not have Kambosos Haney undisputed headline with the co-main being Tim Tszyu versus the winner of the Charlo Castaño rematch?
That would mean have to get them out, get that winner of that fight out there. Charlo, get them out there. I don't know about that.
Tough call. And I would love that as a card, but you're sacrificing a lot of money because Tim Tszyu can sell out a big arena by himself as the main event. I'm not sure they want to double it up and lose that sort of revenue.
Who said they had to be in the same venue? You could have it in two arenas. Have it one big media event.
Yeah, it's a lot of ask of the fans. I think they'd want to separate that out. I do.
Lee says here in the chat that people tend to forget that Haney at 23 is the youngest current champ. He's solid for 10 rounds, and once he gets his full man strength, he'll be strong over 12 rounds. He performed very well. He also says that we also have to take in account Australia's lockdowns.
Yeah.
Take Australia's lockdown in account as far as the timing. Once that's lifted, it's a go. Yeah, you're right on both counts. Once
And to make
Haney
me
gets his
feel good
man strength,
today,
though, the problem is once he gets his man strength, he won't be a lightweight. He'll probably be a full-blown welterweight
I
at
think
that
that might
point.
be true.
So, and if Cambosis is adamant about Australia, you definitely have to factor that in. Let's move on to some other fights here because we got so many things to preview. That's going to take a while. I'm going to split these next two fights up. I'm going to you on this one, Daniel. Lyndon Arthur had one of the surprises of 2020 when he defeated Anthony Yarde. We talked about this last week when we previewed the fight. The key to that win, Arthur's win, I should say, was the jab. He kept that stick in Yarde's face all fight long when they fought December 2020. And Yarde and his trainer, Tunde Ajayi, didn't have any answers. They had nothing to counter that, right? They fought again over the weekend. Yarde 1-4 stopped him. And the jab that Lyndon Arthur displayed to such a great effect in that first fight was largely non-existent in the second fight, to the point it makes me wonder. It's almost like this was, I ain't gonna say setup was the word, but it was just the jab was lacking to such a degree that he made this fight easy for Anthony Yarde. Anthony Yarde didn't have nothing to worry about. He was able to get in there, use his advantage in size and strength, and get his shots in, and eventually bum rush him in the fourth, hit him with a allotment of punches, and take him out. He went down and he didn't get back up. Puzzling.
Puzzling, yes. You can say puzzling in a way with that plan, but the only way I can explain it, other than briefcases exchanging hands, is maybe you felt that you psychologically beat Yarde to such an extent that he's already too much in his head, and anything that you do, even against Yarde, he'll be too befuddled by it. That obviously was not the case. Yarde came prepared, and once he saw that the only thing that gave him major issues in the last fight was not being utilized, he just went to work. And ultimately, it's a good revenge win. It puts him, like I said, it puts him back on the stage. And like I mentioned last week, it could probably still keep him, at least horse race wise and Frank Warren wise, with Buatsi, as far as light heavyweights in the UK. So it's a good win, but baffling game plan unless, like I said, unless either you really thought that you beat the guy mentally to the point where he's not going to do anything, or briefcases exchanged hands.
Yarde moves up to number one contender now for the WBO. Oh gosh, brain freeze. WBO light heavyweight champion.
Joe Smith.
Yeah, Joe Smith Jr. He has a fight coming up early next year. I would anticipate that Yarde gets the winner of that. I still wouldn't put him up in comparison, Yarde to Buatsi, because until proven otherwise, Buatsi is the better fighter. In my opinion, I don't care if Yarde has had a title shot already, has technically more professional experience. I just think that Buatsi is a more talented fighter and has a better future overall. But in terms of Yarde and his future, look for him to fight the winner of Joe Smith. I think he's fighting a guy by the name Salimov or some, I can't remember his last name. He's fighting early 2022, and assuming that Joe Smith Jr. wins that, he'll probably fight. Him and Yarde will probably fight. I'm guessing spring, early summer next year. I go to you on this last fight, Gail. Jessica McCaskill um, fought on the Haney Diaz undercard, I believe it was. Fought Kandi Wyatt, stopped her in 7. That's all good and dandy. I wasn't able to see this fight. That's good. It's good that she got the knockout win, but if I don't hear anything about her fighting Alma Ibarra, I'm like, it means nothing to me. I think you was able to see the fight, at least read the reports. Were there anything said from Tina Castro about Ibarra, who is her number one contender, and who has said, "Yeah, I'm coming for you, McCaskill, you and me. I want to see you in that ring."
No, let's remember that Kandi Wyatt took the fight on very short notice, very short. Good for her. Victoria Bustos of Argentina was the original opponent. She had visa issues due to pandemic restrictions, and they just could not clear her at the last minute. So McCaskill wants to revisit that fight and make it happen once they get that straightened out. She didn't take a whole lot of damage in this fight. She pretty much dictated terms, and she got the stoppage. Referee wasn't really going to let Wyatt take a whole lot of pounding, and it wasn't necessary. So I'm fine with her taking the Bustos fight next, and then let's see where she goes. McCaskill has certainly not been afraid of any opponent. She's gone into the lion's den every time. Nothing in her attitude, demeanor, or activity rate tells me it's going to be any different. So I don't think you need to be too mad at her right now, Michael. Give her the time to make that up on the Bustos fight, and then I do think we'll see her getting a little more ambitious as we get into the spring. It's been a weird year. Last year was even a stranger year. We're kind of playing catch up, and end of this year has just been crazy, cramming it in. So I think everybody needs to take a holiday once they got their fights in, chill out a bit. They've all earned it. And let's see how the schedule shakes out next year.
Let's move on to some news here. And this broke a couple of days ago. Dillian Whyte has been in litigation trying to get his long-awaited shot at the WBC heavyweight title, where it looks like his work behind the scenes in the courts has been in his favor, as the BC indeed ordered that WBC heavyweight champion fight Whyte. Next, I'll go back to you, Gail. Your reaction. It looks like, unless something unforeseen happens, that Dillian Whyte, he gets his shot finally.
Well, all I can say is, ladies and gentlemen, this is why you do not make non-refundable travel plans when boxing is involved. I'm just saying. He's poor Dillian. He's just so damn snake bit. I mean, until they're in the ring, I'm not super sure of anything. He does deserve this shot. I'd love to see it. Should be a lot of fun. Do we give him a lot of chance? No, but we've had a lot of guys way on the underside of fights pull it out. So it'll be something to look forward to. And I think the lead up will be a lot of fun.
Next story here, Daniel, is looks like we have the return of Keith Thurman. News broke today via ESPN that Thurman has agreed in principle to take a fight against. Give me a quick second. I'm checking something here, having some technical issues on my end. My apologies. Give me a quick second. Thurman is... Oh, come on. Give me a quick second, folks. I'm having some technical issues on my end. Come on. My apologies. I want to apologize again. I'm having some technical issues on my end. Again, trying to get this straight. He's fighting. There it is. He's having some he's going to return January 29, 2022. He's going to fight Mario Barrios at 147 pounds. Here's the issue. I'm glad, Daniel, that Thurman is finally returning to the ring, but this is the same Mario Barrios who just got knocked out, got stopped by Gervonta Davis at 140 pounds. Will the folks buy this? Or are they just happy that Thurman is making his return to the ring?
They'll buy it, but probably not pay per view. And from my understanding, they're trying to position this as a pay per view.
It is going to be a Fox pay per view.
I don't think it's going to be a major seller, but it is good to see Keith Thurman get back into the ring because not with the way the welterweight division is right now, there's a lot of players, a lot of moves that can be made, especially now that Sean Porter has taken himself out of the equation with retirement. So now there's one less piece you have to move in to either get a fight with Errol Spence if you sense that his recovery isn't as good as into it, or be the next guy that takes on Crawford. So that's going to be interesting to see how they're going to position Thurman, especially after that layoff that he had. Like, remember, it wasn't an injury layoff. It was just, he just didn't fight. Now he's putting in there, and Barrios is, as far as an opponent, yeah, it's going to be a tune-up. Barrios proved himself serviceable against Tank. It's going to be a move up in weight class. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue, but at least he's back. I just don't like the idea of this being pay-per-view.
It shouldn't. It should be on regular Fox, but hell, I don't know why it's pay per view. I can't even out. I'm trying to see. Okay, why Thurman? He's coming off. I know he's still viewed as one of the best at 147 pounds, but he's coming off of a loss. He hadn't fought in what 30 months, over 30 months. Now, yeah, I'm glad he's back, but against this guy in pay per view bout. Ugh. Well, but yeah, at least he's back in the ring. That's the important thing. That's the important thing. Let's move on here to preview some fights. Unless y'all got some late breaking news that y'all want to talk about right now. Gail, Daniel, I'll give you the floor right now quickly.
We got so many fights to preview. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to split these up because there's so many, and some on the dockets that I just didn't mention because again, it would take a good hour or so if we had to talk about all the fights this weekend. So I'll go start off with you, Gail. Look, Lomachenko was viewed, Vasyl Lomachenko many thought had him number one pound for pound fighter throughout 2020. He lost to Teofimo Lopez, had a fight in June, had a comeback fight in June. He's going to fight this coming weekend. Going to fight former IBF champion Richard Commey. These two were scheduled to fight prior, but got pushed back, right? So they're going to fight again. Commey can punch. That's the only advantage, honestly, I'll give him in this fight. Lomachenko showed in his last bout that he's still Loma. He's still a boxing marvel. He still is one heck of a puzzle to solve. And I just think his array of skill, his intelligence, his ability to use his feet is going to be too much. Only chance that I give Commey is that big punch, and I just don't see him landing that against Vasyl Lomachenko. Gail, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. People who are prone to write Lomachenko off, I think they're making a big mistake based on one fight where he made some mental mistakes. He really did. When he decided and injured, that's the correct, right? So when he decided to go for broken, pour it on, he won rounds, but he either wouldn't or couldn't. Commey has power. You can't be reckless, but he doesn't always have the tactical decision-making skill behind it. He's sort of a blunt force object. And it works for him a lot of the time. Against Lomachenko, not so much. Um, I don't see any sort of one punch knockout, however, from Loma's side either. His stoppages tend to be that, pile up, war of attrition kind of stuff, or somebody just is taking, so much battering, they do the no moss thing. I don't see Commey saying no moss at all. I see either his corner or the referee saving him from himself if it gets to it. But I would absolutely not be surprised to see this go rounds and go to a full decision with Loma pretty much dominating on the cards. Then we're going to have some very interesting questions and propositions to answer. The cards are really all being shuffled around in the deck right now. And options are good. Options are great in boxing. For us, the fans, absolutely great.
This fight is taking place on December 11th. Also on the 11th, Daniel got a card on Showtime. Nonito Donaire, who last time we saw him was beating, was having it was easy work, surprisingly easy work against Obali to win the WBC belt at 118 pounds. Fighting mandatory contender here, Gaballo. Bit of a mystery, unknown factor here. Uh, what say you? How much of a chance do you give him about the pros pro, if you will, and the Filipino Flash Nonito Donaire?
I don't give him a lot of a chance because of one of the things that Nonito Donaire does is he stays prepared. He stays prepared when it comes to fights like this, and he knows he knows the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow right now for him is that rematch with Inoue, or possibly try to rehash that fight with Casimero too. So he knows the goals that have in mind, and I feel bad for Caballo, but I think Nonito's motivated enough to know that he should take care of business, especially in a boxing world that has doubted him taking care of business for the past few years until recently.
Um, got a fight over in the UK. I'll go back to you on this one, Daniel. Um, Conor Benn, whatever you want to say about him in terms of criticism, he is rising up the ranks. Been fairly impressive in his last few outings. Returns to the ring against Chris Algieri, who these days making as much headway in terms of what he's doing outside the ring, training and being a nutritionist than he has in the ring. I think he's far past his best. Uh, I think at his prime, I think this would be a very good fight. But against a young and hungry Conor Benn, I don't know. I don't know. I see issues with Ben. I think he's vulnerable. I think he can be really outboxed, and we've seen him hurt. But how much can Algieri at this stage of his career? How much of a test do you think that he could give Ben?
That's going to be the tricky part. How much of a test can somebody, when it comes to outboxing you, can do? And like I said, I'm not gonna fully dismiss Algeria in this case because remember the last few times, the first time I still remember that we fully dismissed Algeria and he wanted beating Provannikov. Now I'm not calling Conor Benn another Provannikov, but he shows that he has enough of a skill set to win a fight. And like you mentioned, Ben unfortunately is not completely polished yet. There are some flaws that have to be worked out, but it's probably the toughest opponent that he has, a marquee name, and you mentioned this is a welterweight. Eddie wants to get, he needs to get at least one horse in the race because depending on what Bud does, that'll be completely and utterly dominated by the PBC, and only a mandatory is going to break that. So get yourself a high profile opponent, get a good victory out of it, because Algieri has been out for a long time, and he's been doing more of an analyst job, so he's like at least kept himself at least in the sport. But I do expect Conor to pull this one out.
I'll go to you, Gail. The significant fight on the undercard here as undisputed women's lightweight champion Katie Taylor going to fight defend her title against a lady by the name of Sharipova. No issue. Firuza Sharipova. Is she related to Maria Sharipova, the former tennis star? I don't know, but still, more than this fight, Gail, Taylor has to win to set up what could be a potential fight down the road, namely, finally, a fight against Amanda Serrano, which Hearn is trying to finalize behind the scenes. So yeah, Taylor cannot afford any slip-ups here.
No, she can't. And the running theme in the show and the whole year has been that you do not take any opponent, no matter how thin their resume or their previous performances are, you don't take them lightly. Katie Taylor is way too disciplined to do that. This is not going to be difficult for her, but it's important and it keeps her in front of the fans. I am always in favor of that. I will always give the nod to a fighter who stays busy, even if we aren't completely satisfied with the level of opposition all the time. Busy is healthy. Busy is smart. It's far better for their careers. So good for her. She'll get one more fight in this year. And she does need to have a big, big marquee opponent next year. Who's it going to be? Once again, there are options. So that's all nothing but good for boxing fans.
Also on this card, Daniel, you got Sonny Edward, who scored one of the more surprising wins of this year, beating Mutalane to win the flyweight title. He returns to make the first title defense of that IBF 112-pound belt against Jayson Mama. Any predictions here?
I have not seen Mama, but if it's anything like IBF mandatories have been, you have to give him a chance. I remember the last IBF mandatory is now the kingpin of the lightweights. So I would give him a chance, and Sonny Edwards has to ride this wave of winning the surprise victory, because he's at the cusp of probably getting some fights that could be good in the future. There's going to be opponents on 108 that are going to come up to 112. Looking at you, Soto. And obviously, then he can try also move up and try to get into the insanity that is Superfly right now. But I do expect probably Edwards to pull this out.
And last but certainly not least, because there's a whole lot of fights I could mention, but again, trying to get this in without taking too much time. Gil, last fight is one Dmitry Bivol, almost a forgotten man at 175 pounds. He's fighting in, I want to say in Russia. Let me make sure. In Russia, he's defending his WBA belt at 175 pounds against a guy by the name of Salamov. It can be argued that Bivol is Canelo's or whoever is the best fighter at 175 pounds right now, but he's not getting the fights that he wants. He settles for this fight against Salamov. How do you think he will fare?
Well, he was damn rusty when he was last in the ring. So let's hope that he hasn't accumulated it all back waiting for a fight. You know, it is really a mystery to me why Bivol isn't busier. His biggest problem is, you know, he's one of those risk versus reward fighters. He's not terribly entertaining because he's not one of the big knockout artists in the heavier weight divisions. He's a technician. He's a brilliant tactical fighter. He commands real estate in the ring through his footwork better than almost any fighter, certainly anywhere in a division close to his size. His hand speed is excellent. His distance, his judgment of distance is just absolute perfection. So he could just stand out there all day and take someone on. But he's smart enough to know that he does need to deliver some entertainment value, and he can do it. He can do it. We've seen him trade shots and get a little crazier with guys like Sullivan Barrera. His problem is he doesn't really need to, but he doesn't have the out of the ring personality like, let's go back to somebody who got a lot of time on the show, Floyd Mayweather, right? Floyd's fights, especially in that second half of his career, weren't intrinsically entertaining. It was him as a personality and him in the buildup and the marketing of it that, provided him a little bit of cover. And Bivol doesn't quite have that. He's worked very hard to learn English. I hope he hasn't lost a lot of that English skill. He got very good very fast. He's a very nice guy. He's an incredibly pleasant personality to deal with. And full disclosure, I have worked with him in his promoter Main Events. So it's co-promoter in the United States, I should say. So, it's a little disappointing that this is the best fight he could do, but better than nothing. He does get to appear in front of his home country's fans. That is intrinsically healthy. We can see it in the United States. On the West Coast, we're going to have to pour ourselves a cup of coffee because DAZN did pick up this card. It will air at 11:40 a.m. Eastern time, which means 8:40 a.m. Pacific time. But three actually, start earlier than that. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't stay up too late tomorrow night because you can get up and see the first fight at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, and it'll go all the way through the evening until we get to the Donaire and Gaballo card. It is a long day of boxing on DAZN, ESPN, ESPN Plus, Showtime, and AXS TV. Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm tired just looking at it. And let us, before we go any farther, give incredible props and encouragement to our friend Carlos Toro. He is on boxing Twitter as Carlos Toro Media. And he actually went through all these cards and put together an American time zones schedule in order. It's on his Twitter account. Brilliant. Carlos, please, whatever it takes, if you would do this for us every weekend, boxing Twitter would be forever in your debt. But do, folks, follow him, and he's good for more than just scheduling, I promise. He's a damn fine boxing writer. But this was not an easy assignment. He took it on. He killed it.
Yeah, so it's a lot of boxing that's going to take place on December 11th, to be specific, and I think we're going to start to shut things down on that note. I want to thank Lee Groves for his comments, his questions, and his activity throughout this particular live episode. If you like what you heard, either now live or if you decide to check this episode out later, or if you are going to check this out later, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button for the podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, etc., etc., etc. Please make sure to follow us there. If you are so inclined, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. 5-star review will get read on the show. Going to go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. Is going to end the show with ladies first, as always. Gail from Community Digital News, as well as NY Fights, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk media, because that is your hustle. Well, for those who want to check you out on TMZ Live on occasion, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
You can read my work at Communities Digital News, which is COMM Digi DIGI News, comdiginews.com. That's pretty straight up fight previews and fight reviews. And then there is Falcon Talk on nyfights.com. You do get some recaps there, but you also get a dose of the blast. That's where the opinion happens and the swearing takes place.
Indeed, absolutely. I'll go to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially as it pertains to the Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me, folks, on Twitter, Rockstar99, RAWKZ99. And man, I'm probably gonna get very tired at the end of the year. I work in supply chain, and yeah, it's hell. But definitely catch me on there because obviously there's going to be a lot of review this year. This year, very entertaining when it comes into it, and let's just hope that 2022 brings more of the fire.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A lot of fights to close out the year, even though in parts of the world, most notably Japan, they're postponing bouts. Looks like we're not going to see our regular year-end series of world title cards over in Japan due to the new variant of COVID-19. Unfortunately, for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness with me, you know what it is, Brother Jr. At Brother Jr. At Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to check out all things pound for pound box report, the blog page, the website is the place to go to, p4pboxreport.com. Again, if you want to email the show, questions, comments, you can do so. P4pboxnet, p4pboxreport.com on the website. Again, you'll find links to where to follow us on social media, through various social media outlets, through various podcast outlets where you can donate, Cash Me, PayPal donation links. On the next episode, we will do a recap as much as the bouts as we can from December 11th, be it the Dmitry Bivol fight against Salamov. I didn't mention this fight during the preview, but John Riel Casimero, he's defending his WBO bantamweight title on the as the main event of that Sonny Edwards card I mentioned against Jayson Mama. He's fighting he's Casimiro's fighting Paul Butler. We'll make sure to do a recap of that. We'll recap Katie Taylor and her bout against Sharipova, Conor Benn and Algieri, Nonito Donaire and his fight against Gaballo. We will also do a recap of Commey, Vasyl Lomachenko and Commey, and do a preview of Naoya Inoue making his return home as he's going to defend his unified WBA, IBF, bantamweight titles in Tokyo against a guy by the name of Dapian, a Thai fighter by the name of Dipian. One of your favorite fighters, Daniel, on that same day, knockout CP Freshman. He's defending his WBA strawweight title against a guy by the name of Paradero, excuse me. Also, I refuse to mention that fight, that rematch that's going to happen with the YouTuber. But on the 18th,
what? Who are you talking about? Who's that? Weren't you at the press conference today?
I refuse. I'm not going. I don't do it. I got standards. But I will talk about.
I got standards. I'm not sure.
I will just say this: I do not believe Tommy Fury. I do not believe him.
I'm with you there, Daniel. I'm with you there. As something foul going on.
While I will not, that will not get discussed on this show. What will get discussed is
too late. It just was.
No. Y'all mentioned it.
It just was.
You guys mentioned it. I stood back.
Commandeering the airwaves.
But we will also do a preview of Joseph Parker fighting Derek Chisora over in the UK. Zerto Ramirez, he's fighting in San Antonio. San Antonio on that undercard. Sinisa Estrada defending her WBO junior flyweight title. Marlon Esparza defending her WBC flyweight title. Whole other host of bouts is happening also on the 18th. These next 2 weekends is going to be power packed with fights. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to close out the year. So we will try to talk about as much as that as we can. So yeah, this has been episode 346 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Give a shout out to Jacob, who was on here a few weeks back. Hope to have him back on again. Shout out to prior regulars Gus, both from Truth and Facts about sports, head of media relations for Three Kings Boxing. He was also on the show not too long ago. We were all in a group chat, private group chat among boxing writers. Shout out to the folks there. Shout out to Minnie Larry, who was on our ladies show. So yeah, much love to all of them. So yeah, episode 346 of Pound for Pound Box Report in the books. From Gail from Communities Digital News and NY Fights, Daniel from The Inscriber and For Boxing News. This is I am your host, Michael. We will see you next time. Everyone have a good evening, good afternoon, if depending on when you're listening to this. See you guys next time.